Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Chris and this is Regular Guy Training. Now before this video starts, I'm going to invite you to pause this, go to the link in the description below, check out the link that sends you to BitChute and watch our video there. We all know how ridiculous that YouTube is getting with its own little terms and conditions that they don't even follow anymore. So what I'm trying to do now is transfer my audience to a video sharing site that is not exclusive to gun guy stuff, mostly because we need to keep ourselves in the public eye. And if I only go to gun stuff, as far as like websites and everything else, that's essentially a preaching to the choir kind of thing. Now I am making my way over to full 30, and I'm going through the finalization process for that. But at the same time, I would say that if you're going to watch me, for the most part, I would, at the very least, like if you're going to share it or any of that stuff, use the link in the description below for BitChute. Subscribe to me there. And now let's go ahead and get on with this review. Alright, so now let's get down to business here. This is from CAA. It's the Micro Roni with the brace on it. Okay. Now, this isn't the regular stock version that you have to do a tax stamp on, which a lot of guys are interested in. But for guys that want to use this as a quote-unquote PDW type rig, and that actually want to be able to travel places with it and all of that jazz, this is what a lot of guys are going to end up looking for. Now, I looked around the internet, and as far as like good reviews on these, there are not very many. So I figured, you know what, I had a little bit of interest in this, might as well go ahead and do a review on this myself. Now, what this is here is that this is a chassis system for a Gen 3 and 4 style Glock. They have different chassis that deal with different sizes and all that. The one that this one is in particular is a Glock 19 sized. Now, here's the deal. As far as how it works and all of that is concerned, it's actually pretty simple. I'm going to just go ahead and take it down, and then I'm going to go ahead and explain how it goes together. Now, with this individual chassis system here, you're going to deal with a couple of things that a lot of guys may or may not have covered. But let's go ahead and go into all of the positive stuff for it. Now, as far as the chassis is concerned, as far as positives, man, this thing is quite convenient to use, in all honesty. What's neat about it is that it comes ready to accept lights that CAA has put out for this individual piece, and it essentially inserts itself right into this little tab here, right? and it locks up as is. As it stands right now, this is just a little housing for it. A couple of 1913 sections if you don't want to mount light up in that location, or if you just want to attach sling mounts and stuff to it, which I personally wouldn't do, but we'll get to that here in a little while. Okay, now as far as the brace is concerned, it is folding, right? And as you can see, I mean, compared to the size of the actual pistol that that it's supposed to go to, it is not much larger. What it is, however, is much easier to shoot well, although there are limitations. Now, what's also kind of neat about this, and what a lot of questions may be asked about this chassis in particular, is can I still use my slide stop? Yes and no, because this right here will drop your slide, but it, from what I've tried to do, it will not lock it to the rear, right? I don't know if it was designed to do that or not, but it seems that, you know, that is, at least to my estimation, non-functional. This guy right here is your trigger safety, and it's really hokey, right? Like, it's super duper hokey, because as you can probably imagine or hear, it just kind of does whatever it wants to, right? Now, if I snap it down with authority, it snicks, but it doesn't really do that. You can feel a little bit of a detent, and it just kind of like runs itself over, but there isn't much. It's not like a true safety in that regard, to where you can flip it up and have stuff blocked from the trigger guard and all that, but even still, it's not really that good. Comes with a 1913 basically rail that's bolted to it. Right, you can actually see the screws, and it works. I mean, I haven't had any zero loss issues or anything like that, but I will say this: it's not. I'm really not going to try and shoot 1 and 200 yards with it for reasons that I'll explain here in a little bit. Now, this guy right here is basically your charging handle. It essentially slips onto the serrations of the Glock 19, right? Or whatever Glock that you decide to use. And by the way, there are different chassis for other pistols as well. But you can pretty much tell here that it just kind of slips right over. You kind of have to line the serrations themselves up, because there's little grooves inside of it that you can see, right? That are supposed to go in between the individual grip serrations on your slide, right? So you're going to have to kind of line it up, and it presses in there, and while it presses in there, there are a lot of guys that I've seen ask on other reviews and whatnot that are just kind of like, well, how loose is that? And it isn't really. It's kind of a tight fit, which is good, because I don't need this essentially rattling around and shit while the gun is cycling. So there's that. And once you essentially have that installed, this chassis essentially hooks itself up to the light rail on the pistol itself via these tabs, and that's essentially how you release it. So I'm going to go ahead and insert this into the chassis now, and as you can see, it just kind of like flips in there, and you can probably see the little levers here engaging, right? As you push it in, you can see it roll down and then snap back up, and now it's locked in there. Now here's a big plus to this: it is really locked in there, and the rest of the chassis system kind of supports the frame of the pistol to allow for as little wiggle room as possible. Now, as far as wiggling is concerned, and that's a big concern for a lot of guys who have seen in the past, like 1913 rail sections that bolt to the pistol frame itself, to where the frame flexing from the slide actually really messes with zero and stuff. Now, I will say this: once you lock it into place, this thing is very secure. Like, the pistol itself is very secure in there, but it is unavoidable, and I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but it does wiggle in there a little bit. Now, does this matter a whole hell of a lot? Not really, depending on context, right? I said earlier that this is not something that I'm going to go ahead and try and use at like 1 and 200 yards, mostly because that flex will definitely fuck with your zero up here. Right now, I've been messing around with this guy for a little over 1,000 rounds at this point, and I have consistently noticed that if I have any torque whatsoever on the frame of the pistol, that my zero is definitely off. And it could be a little bit and it could be a lot. And really that just magnifies itself as you back up to further distances. Okay, but at ranges that this thing was designed to be used for, and that's essentially like 50 yards and in, it's pretty easy to swing a dual ling tree plate really consistently, and that's something that should definitely be noted about this, is that while it does wiggle in the chassis a little bit, and while it will affect it at, you know, a football field plus, it definitely works well within its own little wheelhouse. Now, as far as its individual application or what you could use it for, this is owned by my buddy Zach, right? And what he does is that he folds this thing up, he sticks a magazine in it, you know, he puts a little freaking trigger safety on there or after he loads it, and he sticks it in the center console of his truck, right? And it fits very nicely in there. And as you guys could probably tell, it's really small, so it'll fit well in there. The stock itself has no locking features, which under normal circumstances I would hate, but for this thing's individual application, for what it was designed for, to be something really small that you stuff into a center console or a bag or something, the fact that it doesn't lock doesn't bother me. Matter of fact, it helps out in deploying the brace itself. So it is what it is, right? I'm not going to be jumping out of airplanes with this thing, and neither really should you. So, as far as how usable it is, I said before that this was nice and stout. It's very tight. What I have noticed though, is as I'm sitting here trying to charge it, I have short shucked this a few times, and that's mainly a training issue, just because I'm expecting to just kind of like let it go, and it's all good. You actually have to put some energy into it, and it's kind of hard to do when you're trying to charge it, because I'm sitting there hooked on this thing and then trying to pull out. You can kind of see how it just kind of sluggishly goes forward. So if you're going to go ahead and charge the thing, you need to charge it with authority, and that will hurt. Okay, I'm telling you, these fingers will feel it. But as far as all that is concerned, I'm going to talk about this guy now, right? Now, with this guy, I've noticed that either it was designed to do it and it straight up doesn't do it, or it wasn't designed to, and therefore no harm, no foul, because if I go ahead and try to lock this thing to the rear, and I've tried this on many different occasions, I'll try to push up on the thing, and you can see that it's got some give, right? But it doesn't really lock shit to the rear. And I'm not sure if it was designed to do that or not, but if it is and it's not doing that, then I would guess that that's a point against it. Now here's something else that's kind of weird about this too, right? As far as just right-handed applications, quote unquote, is concerned, like who this was designed for, it's actually harder to use the pistol than left-handed. Reason being is that if I'm trying to get to this thing right-handed, the chassis itself is a little bit larger, and it's a little bit harder to, manipulate with your hands. Therefore, it's actually quite a bit harder to get to this magazine release button. Whereas, as a lefty, I can just use my trigger finger and knock that guy out as is. I tried running this right-handed a few times, and it was notably far more difficult to use right-handed than left-handed. But as far as that's concerned, it's really not that big of an issue, because as far as dropping the slide on the pistol and all that is concerned, left-handed guys are going to have a pretty easy time with this, because everything's right here, as you already know, and because that's nice and large, it's pretty easy to drop the slide on the pistol. Now, for right-handed guys, it's also not very difficult. It's very similar to like ARs and stuff, to where once you've loaded that thing up, you can go ahead and reach up here and push down, and that drops the slide forward. So really no big deal. Now, the question here is, if this works well, right, for what it was designed for, what's the point of a pistol caliber carbine? Now, I personally have asked this question several times, right? But I've noticed exactly why these are not the end-all be-all. Number one, the accuracy department. A lot of guys that have pistol caliber carbines will zero them at 25 yards, have a good point of aim, point of impact, really close, dial it in perfect at 100 yards, right? And then they can sit there and touch stuff from 200 and in some cases 300, depending on what ammo you got and all that shit, right? This will straight up not do that. Mostly because of the flex between the frame here and the rest of the chassis. It was specifically designed to be a very close-in, very niche product, right? So as far as the whole like pistol caliber carbine concept is concerned, you know, I can thoroughly understand why guys would go with a dedicated carbine versus this system, mostly because there's just more flexibility there. As you can probably tell, this thing is designed to be a very niche product that's designed to be as small as possible, and it's basically a pistol, but easier to shoot well. And really that's the point of the carbine too, but it's nowhere near as flexible. For instance, in the size compartment, this thing is really, really small. Now it's an advantage and a disadvantage in that you can get it really small, and you guys have seen me shoot it fairly well, right? But it's not comfortable. I am extraordinarily compacted. I have longer limbs, right? So it's very uncomfortable for me to shoot this thing well, and that has nothing to do with this hinge here either, right? There's not enough recoil on the whole system to really, like, my face notices this. It doesn't get beat to shit by it. And by the way, it does do that very well. There's very, very little transmitted recoil over to you, which is very, very good. But because it's so small, it's rather uncomfortable to shoot, just because you feel really, really tight the whole time. There's pounds and pounds and pounds of tension in your shoulders at all times on it. But then again, it's not designed to be a match type setup or anything like that, or like a bench gun. So for its individual purpose, however, that center console gun or that bag gun that you have a bunch of stick magazines that you can use for these, that's great. It fills its role very, very well. The only thing that really kind of bothers me about the system, as far as just a quality of life thing or a quality in general kind of thing, is that this guy right here does whatever it wants to. Right, so as far as this turning itself into a bag gun or something like that, this is the one occasion where I'm going to tell you just straight up not to carry this around loaded in a bag, right? Because bags flex and material will get in here whenever it wants to. So I would just say if you have time to open up the bag in the first place, just have the magazine inserted and charge it, and then you're good to go. But as far as folding it up and, you know, center console or a glove box gun or something like that, oh yeah, I mean, so long as there's no other objects in there, yeah, you're good for days on this. What I will recommend right out the gate, though, is a lower 1/3 or an absolute co-witness AR mount on whatever optic you decide to use on this, mostly because the thing is so compacted to where if you don't have some help of some kind, as far as just getting you a little bit higher, you will just be permanently turtled into the thing, and it makes it that much easier, or that much more difficult to snap up on target and use well. So, realistically speaking, it fulfills its role very, very well, and it's not that damn expensive compared to a lot of things that are out there. But I will say this. If you are looking to make this venture outside of what it was designed for, there's absolutely no flexibility there. This is in every way, you know, a PDW style chassis. It really cannot do much of anything else very well, and that is right where you need to stay with it. It isn't like a box cutter type thing where, yeah, I can cut boxes with it, but I can also cut people with it, that kind of thing. No, this is not going to do very well at that, at anything outside of its intended role at all. So there's that. Now there are other versions of this that you can put suppressors onto and everything else, but this is not that at all. So I wouldn't expect this to be like the most wild and crazy review that you can find. But at the same time, this is my experience with it. I put a little over 1,000 rounds through this gun in this chassis, and my findings are exactly that. It does exceptionally well at its intended role. It will not do anything else worth a fuck. So, whether or not that this is going to work for you, you can decide, but that's the point of this whole review, for you to make your own decisions based on a little bit of customer feedback. Oh, one more thing, and this is a knock against this product. This QD Sling Swivel doesn't work for shit. Doesn't lock onto nothing, doesn't hold nothing. I've tried various different types of slings, including a Haley D3 sling and a couple others. That thing does not work. It sucks massive ass. That needs to be fixed. CAA, you need to get on your QC, because that's some bullshit right there. But other than that, though, oh, by the way, for anyone who's questioning whether or not this is stable enough or is, what's the word, stout enough to deal with recoil and not constantly flex and be a huge annoying piece of shit, it does just fine at that. Don't worry about it. It'll flex this way, it'll flex this way just fine, but it doesn't flex very much this way, right? So because it doesn't flex this way very good, you have plenty of recoil of steady abutment for the thing to recoil against. It works fine. So that's all I got on this individual product, guys. I appreciate you guys watching. If you want to get some training with us, whether it be your pistol, rifle, or even your Roni, doesn't matter. We have classes available. We are 2 weeks away from our Del Rio, Texas class. That's Pistol 1. So you guys who have been beating me over the head to come out westward, there's our first class going west. There will be more to follow, I promise you, but that's the first one that we have available, and that's going up, I believe, May 4th and 5th. That's Friday, Saturday. There are other classes available and that are coming up here. I have a Pistol 1 and 2 class that is going to be going down in Lexington, Kentucky at Bud's. They decided that we've done a bunch of classes there, so they want to give us 4 full days to beat the crap out of you guys, which is great. Additionally, we still have slots open for our indoor Rifle 1 class. Now, I thoroughly understand that rifle classes are generally far more fun outside, but there are individual things that you should consider and train with inside. And yeah, I get it, double up on ear protection, but it's worth it to come out and try. We still have a couple of slots left on that individually. Furthermore, we still have all kinds of shit available. More pistol stuff in Maine. That's we're doing Pistol 1 and 2 there. We're doing shotgun, and there's a slot left for the shotgun class, September 1st and 2nd. We're going out to Montana for Rifle 1 and 2. We have a low, no light class, centric around pistols. That's going down as well. September is stacked with all kinds of stuff that you guys can check out. And until I have the new fiscal year for the Army, I'm not going to be planning classes further than September, but I'm still trying to work on a rifle class that will go down in Arkansas, hopefully. And from how it looks, it's probably going to be a performance rifle class. So for those of you guys who've been beating me over the head for a performance rifle class, that's in the works. So I'll see if I can get on that and make it happen. But if you don't want to come out to a course, or if you can't, you can certainly support us on Patreon. For those of you who trained with us before, sign up for $35 a month, and you have unlimited access to any courses that you want from us, so long as you're signed up to that. If you don't want to do that, throwing a nickel at us goes pretty far, because we use a lot of that money to train up soldiers, pay for everything. I mean, you know, food, bullets, gear, flight, all that. We handle it, and that's because you guys give us the capability to. So there's that. And if you want to do neither of those things and you just want to discuss things with us, we're on Facebook and all that. So that's all I got time for today, guys. And remember, a regular guy's firearm is the last defense against tyranny. Be easy.